Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us Mosso at the1916company.com for all of your purchase, pricing, and availability questions concerning this watch. This is a personal favorite. I've reviewed it before, but I wouldn't pass up an opportunity to share the experience again. We're looking at a model launched in 2009, 42 millimeters in white gold. This is the Lange Söhne Zeitwerk, a digital display watch inspired by the 5-minute clock at the Semper Opera House, a watch that won the GPHG Aiguille d'Or as effectively Best Picture at the Oscars of Watchmaking, the Swiss Oscars of Watchmaking, and this one as a German watch. So an incredible piece that pushed the limit of what a Lange could be. The watch at 42 wears true to size. It's a sizable and hefty piece, but not oversized, 13.1 millimeters thick, and from lug tip to lug tip 49.8 millimeters with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Now when I throw it on my wrist, it fits. I'd recommend it for a wrist my size or larger. So I have a 16 centimeter circumference wrist, and I think that's a good lower limit for a watch that has this much physical substance. Now, it's not super thick, and it does feature a sloped domed bezel, so it'll slide under dress cuffs. I would even say it's got a little bit of a sporty air to it, because it doesn't read as a traditional dress watch. It's actually a little bit hard to place aesthetically, and I always say the combination of a dark dial and a white metal case is fairly sporty and works well in casual attire. So don't set this aside when you're wearing short sleeves and short pants. The strap is high grade, large rectangular scale, symmetrical scale, alligator leather. That's always an expensive cut of the animal. Matte finish, a little bit of bolstering to give it volume. We've got a folded edge, monotone stitch on the bottom, calfskin, brand new Lange factory strap, no crimping, no gouging. We've got a buckle that is made of white gold to match the case, and here we are talking gray gold. We'll get into that in a moment. The buckle is simple, Lange branded, has some soft facets outboard. I always shout out two features of this buckle. One is the fact that the bridge is elevated so that the buckle, instead of stacking up underneath, sits inside, not under the buckle. That makes it a little bit thinner on the wrist. We also have this retaining bar, so if you're like me and you're going to use the smallest hole, or maybe even punch a smaller hole, you know that a tightly strapped watch on a small wrist can get stuck or pinned, if you will, on the pin. So this little retaining bar prevents that from happening, as the strap can't sink below the bar, making it easier to remove when the time comes. The lugs are set out from the case band. The two primary refounders of the reborn Lange Söhne in 1990 were company father and Lange family scion Walter Lange, and then German watch executive Günter Blümlein, who was often the concept guy during the early days, and he wanted something distinctive. The stepped lugs were what he and his team came up with, and they've been an almost constant feature on Lange watches since. Well, that is the case. Not every Lange watch features differential finish. Some of them have full polished cases. This one has a satin band through the middle, because it is a little bit chunky. Not super thick, but chunky and sheer, so this breaks up the visual mass. The bezel is shallow and domed, and you can see the case back is somewhat set back, so when it's on the wrist, it reads even a little bit thinner than it is. The crown is off-centered and unique in profile. It also has a distinctive feel, both the shape of it and the resistance to turning it. It's part of the Zeitwerk experience, and you can see it is Lange branded. Part of this, you can see the location of the crown is dictated by the location of the display. The Semperoper, or the Semper Opera House in Dresden, has a clock that, like the Opera House, has been rebuilt several times as disasters like fire and war have ravaged it, but it's always bounced back with a unique digital depiction of the time remaining till the end of the intermission. But whereas that was a time till the end of the intermission, I will turn back the clock a little bit here for the multi-jump. This is a digital display of time with 3 discs, and you could see that the system arms itself just a little bit prior to jumping, but it jumps with beautiful instantaneous coordination. It's also got a lovely symmetry to it, as you could split it down the center, and it's bilaterally symmetrical with one exception. On this side we have a fixing screw, and on this side we have a clear sapphire that's actually the center pivot for these discs. That's right, this time bridge, as it's called, is part of the movement itself, and you can see instead of being printed, made in Germany is engraved. you can see the edge of this bridge is beveled and its top has been satinated. It's really gorgeous in its finishing. And then it's a little bit more silver than the German silver on the back, because whereas this is raw German silver, nickel, copper, and zinc, with the copper giving it that champagne hue, this is actually rhodium plated, so it contrasts optimally with the black of the dial. And the black part of the dial is actually made of blackened sterling silver, so precious metal. We have a up and down power reserve indicator. And remember I said the wind is a unique experience with this watch? It really is. It feels like nothing else. It has a lot of resistance because it takes a ton of power to run this watch, a ton of force and energy. Pull the crown. It does feature a hacking seconds function. Because of the amount of energy involved, it's only got a 36-hour power reserve, so wind it daily. I know, boo-hoo, you're going to have to wind your Zeitwerk. Trust me, you'll enjoy it. So when fully energized, you have 36 hours of power, and it will stop itself via a Maltese cross stopworks on the barrel when you get to the point that it no longer has enough energy to jump the minutes disc. So you can see on the reverse, we do have this barrel, and the barrel is on a bridge that is fixed by screws to the bridge surrounding it. And that is due to the sheer strength of the mainspring. There needs to be some sort of external anchoring. You can see that it rotates inside its unique standalone bridge, and then it has that Maltese cross mechanism which will both stop it when it reaches the end of its wind, and it will also stop you from overwinding it. So it's actually a stopworks that works on both ends. It beats away at 18,000 vibrations per hour with a big slow moving 2.5 hertz cadence, and you can see that it's actually got a free-sprung balance. Yes, the Swan's neck can be used for fine-tuning, but most of the adjustments here, and it is a 5-position chronometer style adjustment, those adjustments are done using the eccentric masses on the rim of the balance to fine-tune and also provide a measure of shock resistance. We also have an overcoil hairspring here with a curve that doubles back up over the center of the spiral. That allows it to keep even time in any position. An overcoil is less susceptible to gravity-induced timing deviation than a flat hairspring, and it's a rare feature on a Lange watch. You could see here L043.1, that means Lange, work started in 2004. The third movement started in 2004, and this is revision number 1. Now, whereas most Lange watches give you a single freehand engraved structure, here you get both the balance cock and the escape wheel cock. We have a little conveyor belt that locks and unlocks a 1-minute remontoir. So this is a constant force device. There's also a drive underneath that you can't quite see. But what you will be able to see is that there is a blued hairspring underneath the structure sitting between 2 third wheels. And once a minute, energy is released from the mainspring. It jumps the minutes, and then it races down through a train that loads up one of these third wheels and transmits 1 minute worth of energy into that blued hairspring. And it is that hairspring which acts as a sort of accumulator or a buffer between the mainspring and the escapement. It is that hairspring that powers the escapement for 1 minute. So despite the huge fluctuation of force released by the mainspring through the jumps, this will always get a very even application of force. So it solves one of the biggest historical problems with jumping time watches, which is that they have huge surges, ebbs and flows of torque to the escapement and force to the escapement. And with this remontoir, you do not have that. You can see that there's a second and rather complex steel locking lever system that's at work right there. And if you look carefully, you can see there's a little pinwheel that acts as an air brake to take some of the energy out of the drive as it comes downstream from the jumper. So it's not as abrupt and forceful as it reaches the remontoir system. You can see that this bridge is in steel. Everything here that's silver is in steel, either beautifully solarized and satinated, or, as in the case of the Maltese cross and some of the screws, black polished. You can see that the edges of this bridge for the remontoir have been beveled and the top satin brushed. We have golden chaton fixing jewels, a nod to a pocket watches were made at a Lange Söhne back in the 19th and early 20th century. We have streifen across the bridges. They are stripes glass, not Côte de Genève, we're not in Switzerland. We have a mirror finish, not only on many of the screws, not only on the click and the click spring, not only on the cap to the escape wheel and the Maltese cross mechanism, but also on the swan's neck fun adjustment, which is also beveled on its side. There's engine turning in two sizes on the base plate, and you can see at the edge of the bridges the anglage that lights up as these are mirror beveled. In fact, if you get close, you can begin to see that some of the teeth of the winding train have been beveled on their side, which is a real refinement rarely seen on watches from mainstream brands. There's also a lovely solarization on top of the barrel, and then 68 joules necessary to perform all of these operations. A truly special landmark watch and one of my favorite of all time. And a couple little notes. Lange doesn't make cases, so you see how that says CO right there? Somehow there's a Swiss hallmark on this German watch. Well, Centror is a company that I believe is owned by Audemars Piguet that's located in Switzerland and makes a lot of Lange cases, so that has a CO. This has that little B on there because Lange doesn't make bracelets or clasps either, so that's for Brogioli, which is down in Italian-speaking Switzerland. Every detail I can share of this watch, I attempt to. Another thing worth mentioning is that here we have both mirror-polished screws, but also kiln-fired heat-blued screws, and it's a treat to have that kind of variety. Reach out to Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase and pricing details. And one last detail. 30 meters water resistance, so don't take it swimming, but you probably know that. Reach out to Team Mosso at the1916company.com.